Madam the Commissioner, Madam the Minister, Presidents, dear students, it's a great joy and an honor to open the inaugural session of the European Student Assembly, ESA, in this symbolic place, the Palais Universitaire of Strasbourg, where the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe held its first session in August 1949. As we are gathered today in a symbolic place, we are also in a historic moment for Europe. The EU has launched the first citizens' consultation in order to define the future of Europe. ESA is aiming at contributing to the conference on the future of Europe by proposing recommendations which will be exposed tomorrow by the rapporteurs of the 10 panels. Sadly, we are also in an historic moment with a war at the edge of the European Union, and it is fitting to recall the words of Robert Schuman. I quote, "The contribution which an organized and living Europe can bring to civilization is indispensable to the maintenance of peaceful relations. Europe will not be made all at once or according to a single plan. It will be built through concrete achievements which first create a de facto solidarity. ESA is a form of the de facto solidarity amongst European students, the future generation of Europe. We regret the fact that 2 students coming from Croatia have not been able to come to Strasbourg because of the war in Ukraine. I will not take more time, and I will leave the floor to Professor Denneken, the president of the University of Strasbourg, as well as the coordinator of Epicure Alliance. I want to thank him and his staff for hosting ESA in his university.
Dear ministers, dear presidents, and dear friends, dear students, on behalf of the University of Strasbourg, I'm happy, really very happy, to welcome you in this aula magna of our university, the inaugural session of the European Students' Assembly. You are nearly 300 students from all the countries of the European Union, belonging to 38 European alliances awarded by the European Commission. As president of the University of Strasbourg and chair of the European University Alliance Epicure, I'm proud to welcome you to this city, to this university, which is so symbolic for the construction of Europe. Of course, presiding over your phone. No. Presiding over a fine university like that of Strasbourg, dear Manuel, can make you a little bit chauvinistic. But I have some reasons to be. Because France is presiding over the European Union till end of June 2022, and because Strasbourg is the ordinary seat of the European Parliament and many other institutions, such as the Council of Europe, you said it before me, and also other European institutions like the European Court of Human Rights. But this is normal for Strasbourg. Nothing but daily life in the European capital that is Strasbourg. But today, on the 8th day of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when 4 countries of our European Union, Poland, Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia, have a common border with Ukraine, the place here that welcomes you changes from the symbol to a warning, from the city of history and memory to a capital of resistance and resilience. And what about our University of Strasbourg? More than ever, it is the heart, the core of European commitment to the dynamic defense of the unprescriptible values, common values that bind us together: friendship, democracy, fraternity, humanism. Here, in Strasbourg, so many wars between Germans and French deeply bruised both the city and the university. At the entrance of this university are engraved in the marble the 85 names of students and teachers that were killed by the Gestapo in 1943 as our university was a refugee in Clermont-Ferrand. And this aula magna bears the name of Marc Bloch, one of the great French historians who was killed by the Gestapo because he was a Jew. But here also took place the Constituent Assembly of the Council of Europe in 1949. As a city on the border, on the Rhine, Strasbourg imposed itself after the war, the last war, as a place of reconciliation between French and Germans. It's not a very far past. My father was engaged in the German army, and after that he fled to the French army. The same boy of Strasbourg at your age. Thus was born the European utopia, since 2 secular enemies, German and French, have managed to make peace and fraternize, then everything became possible. But democracies and federations of peoples are fragile objects, and we measure today what it means. Nothing is ever acquired. In recent years, a certain fatigue in Europe has led peoples to Euroscepticism. Populists and demagogists made of the Brussels Commission something like a punching ball. I hope that today this punching ball becomes a trampoline to make us jump higher in the sky of your ideals, to build Europe greater, more generous and free. It was said that the evils of the peoples were due to the obscure technocratic decisions of a handful of European civil servants in their Brussels ivory tower. There was even a country, the country of Churchill and Shakespeare, that took the tragic decision to leave the European Union. President Putin is demonstrating today in an abject and cynical way that deepening and strengthening Europe does not mean less Europe, but more Europe, even more Europe and integration. National sovereignties no longer hold in a wild world. That's why we have now to build a stronger sovereignty of Europe. Those who a week ago still wanted less Europe are begging today for more Europe. So can you understand, dear students, that the President of the University of Strasbourg is animated this evening by a grave joy and a renewed passion for the European vocation of our universities when I contemplate your young faces and consider your long lives as great promises for today and tomorrow. Erasmus, for instance, was one of the great ideas of the European Union. It is said that more than 1 million of Erasmus babies were born. This momentum must continue, please, more babies in Erasmus. I am too old, but I can adopt them if you want. During the 2 days of your work, you will give a soul, a new dynamism, and a youth to Europe. You are now our joyful protest, our best peaceful weapon against mortifying nationalism, revisionisms. You are the concrete and intelligent weapon for a Europe of life and of hope. You are marked by a generational concern about the climate change. But here you are, so young, joined by another concern since 8 days, the concern of peace. Maybe this concern could be the trigger for you to foster your European conscience and commitment. You, student, I want to have a special welcome for our students from Slovakia, Poland, Hungary, and Romania, because you are at the border of Ukraine, and we must help you to welcome the refugees. We must help you to be more European. Thank you to be here. Your solidarity with your persecuted Ukrainian neighbors makes their desire for Europe even more intense. Yesterday, President Zelensky knocked on the door of Europe. This evening, the President of Moldavia knocks on our door. Will you let this door close? Finally, I want to tell to our 500 Russian and Belarusian students at our University of Strasbourg that we suffer for them. We suffer because they suffer from the consequences of the mad and murderous wandering of their leaders. Their students' cards are the same as the student cards of our 120 Ukrainian students. It's a pass for knowledge and science, for dialogue that breaks down boundaries, a pass for freedom and dialogue. The European flag is azure blue with 12 yellow stars. Blue and yellow, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. Come quickly on the day when the Ukrainian flag will fly in front of our European Parliament in Strasbourg. Students of European Alliance, be proud of the European flag. Since last Tuesday, we have discovered that we must fight so that it floats high in a future of peace justice, and democracy. If Ukrainians are fighting, it is also for us. And we have to support them and welcome them in our countries, families, and universities. I wish you 2 intensive, lively, committed, and resistant happy days.
The Franco-German University has significantly supported our initiative, and I thank its president, Professor Gresiano, who is also a colleague of mine from Grenoble. The financial support of UFA made this event possible, and we are therefore deeply grateful.
Madame la Commissaire, Madame la Ministre, Messieurs les Présidents, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers étudiants. Au nom de l'Université franco-allemande, je me réjouis beaucoup d'ouvrir à vos côtés la session inaugurale du Parlement des étudiants européens à Strasbourg. Ce projet est une initiative ambitieuse qui permet non seulement de réunir des étudiants issus de plusieurs horizons, mais surtout de contribuer ensemble, main dans la main et de façon innovante à la conférence sur l'avenir de l'Europe. C'est bien la voix des jeunes Européens qui est au cœur du projet, et ceci est un signal très fort pour montrer depuis la capitale européenne notre engagement pour la paix, pour la sécurité et pour la solidarité en cette période de crise internationale. Le grand succès de cette manifestation montre combien les jeunes étudiants sont motivés. 800 étudiants de toute l'Europe ont souhaité venir. En tant que président de l'Université franco-allemande, je suis très heureux de constater que près d'un tiers viennent de France ou d'Allemagne, les pays fondateurs de l'Europe, et que sur 140 universités ici présentes, les universités françaises et allemandes représentent aussi près de 30% des effectifs. Elles font toutes partie de notre réseau qui comprend aujourd'hui 208 établissements. Comme vous le savez, l'Université franco-allemande soutient la formation multilingue et la recherche pluridisciplinaire en Europe. Nous avons 27 cursus en études européennes, 3 collèges doctoraux et 7 co-tutelles de thèse sur l'Europe. En 20 ans d'expérience, ce sont 22 000 alumni qui sont parmi nous, et n'hésitez pas à les rencontrer tout à l'heure, qui sont tous formés en 3 langues, en français, en allemand et en anglais. Or, c'est précisément ce plurilinguisme et cet échange interculturel qui font vivre l'espace européen et qui permettent, dans un avenir proche, je l'espère, de restaurer des relations internationales apaisées entre le Nord et le Sud et l'Est et l'Ouest. Ces dernières années, l'Université franco-allemande a renforcé son action en faveur des thématiques européennes, grâce à des appels à projets scientifiques sur la construction européenne, l'intelligence artificielle et le développement durable. Depuis 2018, l'organisation de l'UFA prépare des débats Utopie Europa, au cours desquels les étudiants présentent leur conception d'une société ouverte, forte et solidaire. Et enfin, nous avons suivi avec grand intérêt la création des universités européennes et sommes très heureux de vous annoncer que sur 74 universités de notre réseau, elles font toutes partie de ces alliances nouvellement créées. C'est donc sans hésiter que nous avons soutenu votre événement, dont je tiens à saluer la qualité et le dynamisme, et je tiens à remercier les organisateurs pour leur implication, ainsi que tous les étudiants pour leur participation très heureuse et très stimulante pour nous, les professeurs et les institutions qui soutiennent justement cette manifestation. Cette manifestation fait partie des manifestations financées dans le cadre de la présidence française de l'Union européenne. Ainsi, en janvier, nous avons organisé avec Strasbourg, déjà, un séminaire sur les défis de l'Europe, sous l'angle de l'innovation et de la compétitivité. En mai prochain, nous allons lancer les dialogues franco-allemands pour l'Europe à Lyon, avec des acteurs universitaires, politiques et socio-économiques, qui viendront échanger sur l'importance du couple franco-allemand pour construire l'Europe de demain. Votre programme, chère Constance, fait donc partie clairement de notre agenda et l'Université franco-allemande défend ces thèmes avec un dynamisme depuis très longtemps. In der Tat steht Europa vor großen Herausforderungen. Klimawandel, Nachhaltigkeit, internationale Sicherheit. Viele Länder, darunter auch Deutschland und Frankreich, müssen sich annähern, strategisch denken und Vorschläge machen. Die heutige Veranstaltung ist eine wunderbare Gelegenheit, darüber zu diskutieren. Die Fragen des Wachstums und der Digitalisierung werden vor diesem Hintergrund morgen behandelt. Welches Modell wollen wir? Wie können wir ethische und rechtliche Fragen beantworten? Außerdem gibt es auch sehr viele sozioökonomische Herausforderungen. Darüber hinaus spielen auch die sozialen Medien eine wichtige Rolle, insbesondere im Rahmen der Bildung und der Forschung. Ein weiterer wichtiger und hochaktueller Aspekt besteht in der europäischen Gesundheitspolitik. Die Pandemie hat dafür gesorgt, dass Europa auch in dem Bereich näher zusammenrückt. Geradezu historisch war in diesem Zusammenhang der von dem Präsidenten Macron und der Bundeskanzlerin Merkel beschlossene Wiederaufbaufonds in Höhe von 57 Millionen Euro, der auch den Zugang zur besseren Gesundheitsversorgung gesichert hat. Die Deutsch-Französische Hochschule unterstützt wissenschaftliche Kooperationen in diesem Zusammenhang und auch diese Themen und wird die Diskussion morgen sowie die Vorschläge des Panels 3 aufmerksam verfolgen. Die hochaktuelle Kernfrage, das wurde schon jetzt besprochen, der europäischen Souveränität wird durch die Panels 1 und 8 morgen behandelt. Auch hier gibt es spannende Entwicklungen und Annäherungsmöglichkeiten in Europa. Wir wollen ja alle zusammen eine friedliche und sichere Zukunft aufbauen. Dafür brauchen wir hier, wie auch in allen genannten Gebieten, einen interdisziplinären und mehrsprachigen Dialog. Die Jugend spielt hier eine sehr wichtige Rolle, eine zentrale Rolle, denn es geht hier um ihre Zukunft und auch um ihre Visionen einer besseren Welt. Wir freuen uns auch, sehr hiermit teilnehmen zu dürfen. Herzlichen Dank. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention. Bonne conférence à tous et vive l'Europe.
Manuel Tunon de Lara, President of France Université, thank you for the institutional and financial support of France Université. I would like also to say a word to thank Karl Bonafou-Murat, who was, in a way, the soul of the project, but acting in the shadow.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Constance. Dear students, dear President Deneken, my dear Michel, thank you for hosting this very important event. Dear President Griciano, dear colleagues. It's a real pleasure for France University, which was the conference of presidents of universities in France, to participate to this event. And well, the previous speakers have paid a due homage to this wonderful initiative. The launch of the European Student Assembly here in the seat of the European Parliament and on the premises of the world-renowned University of Strasbourg, of course. Michel has said and has said a lot with strong words about these very tragic circumstances under which this inaugural meeting is taking place. And Ukraine is on all our minds. And I must say that the images of those young people ready to fight whatever the cost for the sake of the freedom and democracy, it's very much moving, and we do not yet know if Ukraine might indeed be allowed to join the European Union through a fast-track procedure, but France Université stands by the side of all the students, academics, researchers, and all the citizens who have been brutally deprived of future prospects of independence and of their human rights. For the past few days, France Université has been mobilized in order to gather as much information as possible about the French students and the staff who are now in Ukraine or Russia, but also the Ukrainian and Russian students and staff who are in France. How many of them there are? Where exactly do they work or study? Do they need financial or logistical support? And so on and so forth. Our commitment to the cause of the Ukrainian people will be key in the days and weeks to come. We have to make them feel that they are part of those networks and that we stand united in defense of their rights, in one word, that we care. No doubt, all this will be discussed in the 8 panels of tomorrow's session. How should the EU position itself in a globalized world vis-à-vis other actors? And I'm pretty sure that your findings and recommendations will be listened to very carefully, not only by the European academic community, but also by the Parliament and the Commission. Your very presence today, coming as you do from about 40 countries, representing 28 alliances and about 120 institutions, is evidence that the European universities initiatives can be the basis for a new compact, not only between Europe and its citizens, but also between the various actors of the scientific and academic community, including you, the student body. We represent universities and therefore stand for the model that is unique in France, in Europe, or in the world. This model is based on the links between research, innovation, and teaching and training, and we usually call a continuum. Your courses of study are research-based. They are modified according to the new development of research, and this is why universities differ from other types of higher education institutions. And this is also why a higher institution which bases its teaching and training on research may rightly call itself a university, even though technically it may have another name. What is no less fundamental, however, is that research leads to the acquisition of knowledge, becomes, so to speak, disseminated in study programs. This does not mean that research ought to be finalized, that research without directionally, as the Commission calls it, is pointless. Far from it. What I mean that all the discoveries and creations of research should benefit students, should benefit you. In medicine, there is what we call translational research, that is research transformed into new treatments or carrying methods for the sake of the public. In a way, all kinds of research should be translational, should be for the sake of students, because this is the basis of democracy, because you are the basis of democracy, and because you are the future of Europe, as Michel said, whatever the country from which you come. As you today, you are the ambassadors of a model that unites research, innovation, and study holistically. When it comes to Europe, however, this model has to face its own specificities. It has to cope with borders, with different cultures, and a whole range of languages. And to take up my previous image, it translates across all those realities, and we have to uphold them. In the European university initiatives, if the European university initiatives wishes to reach out to citizens at large, outside the fold of academia, We have to take those realities into account. We have to uphold them as much as we can. And the university model may be the same across all the continents, but Europe has to cope with multiculturalism and multilingualism. Regarding the latter, let me point out the end of this year 2022. We are celebrating an anniversary which has remained mostly unnoticed. It was the recognition in 1922 of Esperanto by the League of Nations. And Esperanto was created much earlier, at the end of the 19th century, but its officialization by the League of Nations was based on the conviction that one of the causes for world war had been the lack of a common language between the nations of the world. One of the points of which the League of Nations insisted was that none of the existing languages, whether dead or alive, could be the basis for Esperanto, neither Latin, nor French, nor Spanish, nor English. And about 10 years later, at this period of time, another planned language was invented by an English linguist who was Charles Key Ogden, and its name was Basic English, and it was composed of 850 words, about 600 of which were nouns. But as its name indicates, contrary to Esperanto, Basic English was based on English, and of its aims was simplification and automation. And regarding these attempts in the history for communication, we must say, and is it possible today to fail to see that this is one of the main issues by the European university initiatives, as illustrated by my previous speaker, the president of FU. Hence, the role of translation, which can be improved by the use of IA, but IA can't be the be-all and end-all of European languages, nor can translation be. In other words, each alliance will have to create its own language, its own specific multilingualism, a kind of do-it-yourself solution, or to take up a concept coined by Lévi-Strauss, the French anthropologist. This will be your role, the role of students constructing shared languages with bits and pieces of all the existing languages. Let me remind you, to end with, that in the 16th century, European languages grew exponentially thanks to a process of grafting. One example was a dictionary edited by Ambrogio Calepino, an Italian lexicographer whose name has gone down in French. We have given rise to Calepin, the notebook. And in 1502, Calepino's dictionary numbered 2 languages, Latin and Italian. And by the end of 16th century, that number has risen to 11, with Latin remaining the foundational language from which all the others derive. So this is a partly of example to follow, and partly not. But put simply, it shows that Europe is not condemned to a face-to-face relationship with one language, English or Latin, in the previous century. But more importantly, it shows that creating combination of 11 languages is a possibility. And most European universities will have at least 9 members institutions in the year to come. And this is a good start. Thank you for your attention.
Maria Gabriel, Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, honors us with a written speech which will be read by Émilie Berger, student from Sciences Po.
Dear students, I cannot be there with you, but I could not miss this chance to send a word of appreciation for your work. The European Student Assembly is the concrete reification of the European Universities community. From the very beginning of the European Universities Initiative, we encouraged the involvement of students as a key success factor for alliances. Our goal was always to build more cohesive communities in higher education, communities that can work together to face the difficult challenges ahead. I'm very glad to see students representing so many alliances wanting to make their voices heard. Young people's voices are fundamental if we are to lead Europe towards a future that matches the will of our citizens. This idea that every constituency is important, that democracy is in itself a value towards which we strive, is at the core of so much of our work. For example, the Conference on the Future of Europe. It is also fully embedded in the European Year of Youth 2022. I hope you will all participate in its activities. This would be important in and of itself, but it becomes doubly so because of who you are and who you represent. As students, you're poised to become entrepreneurs, scientists, and social innovators. Not only that, but you have the greatest amount of energy and time to make an impact. You're starting your adult lives, and you have so much to give. Investing in you, listening to your voices, is to invest in your participation and engagement too. This, of course, is an idea that is core to our European strategy for universities. The strategy, which comes alongside a Council recommendation on building bridges for effective European higher education cooperation, aims to invest in you, in your abilities, so that your efforts find the most fertile ground to blossom. Of course, just like we cannot make the world of tomorrow without listening to you, we cannot create a better university ecosystem out of nowhere. We can only co-create it. And co-created we have. The launch of this strategy comes after an intensive dialogue between the Commission, the Member States, the higher education sector, including the European universities, alliances, and student organizations. Perhaps some of you have even participated in some of our consultations already. And I would also like to thank the European Universities community for having presented your manifesto on the future of universities in Europe. Indeed, we hear you. We are striving to empower our higher education institutions to become more relevant, challenge-driven, inclusive and civic-minded, to encourage more innovative teaching and learning in order for you to acquire the skills that you will need to act in the world, to produce the means you need to study on campuses that are green, connected, and that represent the values of the EU in all its diversity and interconnectedness. With this strategy, we want to give you the possibility to be more mobile from one higher education system to another with a sound pedagogical structure. We want you to be able to begin your curriculum in one university, in one country, and pursue the next year or semester in another university in another country, to see your studies fully recognized, for example, through micro-credentials. And we want your effort to translate to student projects spanning across borders. Because to be real actors of change in society, we need to work together. To that end, we are expanding our European Universities Initiative to 60 alliances with more than 500 universities by mid-2024. We are examining options and necessary steps towards a joint European degree by mid-2024. And we are relying on the Erasmus Plus program to make it all happen. It has been 35 years, and 12.5 million people have had their lives changed by the program. That is something I am deeply proud of. We're also introducing more innovative mobility formats, including blended mobility, and we're rolling out the European Student Card Initiative, making mobility easier and more streamlined, especially through the Erasmus Plus app. All of this is so that you and everyone you represent can become exactly the citizen you want to be, exactly who you are meant to be. I hope you will continue to contribute to our efforts to support higher education, as well as our work, making yourselves heard at the Conference on the Future of Europe and during the European Year of Youth. I know you do a lot already, but I think I merely echo your will when I say that we will not be satisfied until the voice of young people becomes a part of all our work at the EU, nationally and locally. The strategy, the conference, the year, they are not the end. They are a beginning. I wish you inspiring discussions at what is sure to be a very interesting session of the European Student Assembly.
Last but not least, Frédéric Vidal, French Minister of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, has prepared a video for us, and we are very delighted to listen to it. I would like to recall that ESA has been labeled as an event of the French presidency of the Council of the EU.
Madame la commissaire européenne pour l'innovation, la recherche, la culture, l'éducation et la jeunesse, chère Maria, Madame la chef d'unité à la Direction générale de l'éducation et de la culture de la Commission, chère Vanessa, Monsieur le Président de l'Université de Strasbourg, cher Michel, Monsieur le Président de l'Université franco-allemande, cher Philippe, Monsieur le Président de France Université, cher Manuel, Mesdames et Messieurs les députés européens, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues, chers amis, chers étudiants, chères étudiantes. Vous voir réunis au Palais universitaire de Strasbourg est pour moi un très grand plaisir et je tenais vraiment à être présente au travers de cette vidéo. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui car vous avez été force de proposition. La communauté des universités européennes est un projet bottom-up initié par un groupe d'étudiants du réseau des universités européennes. Comme vous le savez, cette conférence sur l'avenir de l'Europe s'inscrit dans le cadre des événements labellisés par la présidence française de l'Union européenne pour donner la parole aux jeunes. Je salue cette initiative de réunir les étudiants des alliances pour qu'ils réfléchissent ensemble aux grands enjeux européens. Vous pourrez ainsi tirer parti du momentum de la conférence sur l'avenir de l'Europe pour porter un message. Vous êtes ici quelques 275 étudiantes et étudiants à parité, venant de 139 universités d'Europe et de 28 États différents. Vous vous êtes portés volontaires pour travailler ensemble et dans le cadre de cette conférence sur des sujets majeurs qui concernent l'avenir de l'Union. Vous pouvez être fiers de vous. Je voudrais vous dire la confiance que le gouvernement français a dans la jeunesse de l'Europe. Après la crise sanitaire que nous venons de traverser, les difficultés liées au confinement et aux restrictions que vous avez vécues, j'imagine combien vous étiez impatients de venir ici, à Strasbourg, de débattre avec vos pairs, de rencontrer les députés. Cette initiative d'Assemblée des étudiants européens s'adresse bien sûr à tous les étudiants d'Europe, mais elle a été initiée, menée et promue par les alliances d'universités européennes. Vous démontrez ainsi l'une des forces de ces alliances, être au service d'une jeunesse investie, enthousiaste et volontaire. Mais l'objectif de cet événement ne se limite pas à faire entendre votre voix. Par vos échanges, par la démonstration que vous faites de votre engagement, vous encouragez l'implication de tous les étudiants au sein des universités européennes. Vous contribuez au renforcement de la collaboration entre les alliances et finalement à l'accroissement de leur impact et de leur visibilité. La France, que je représente ici, est pleinement en phase avec le développement des alliances et l'implication des étudiants. Elle a appelé de ses vœux ce nouveau concept et est à l'écoute de toutes les propositions, comme les diplômes européens ou encore l'engagement pour le développement durable. La France a soutenu et continuera à soutenir les alliances. Votre présence ici est une preuve supplémentaire, s'il en fallait, que nous sommes sur le bon chemin. Les 10 sujets que vous avez choisi d'aborder et qui ont fait l'objet d'un travail préalable par le comité d'organisation me semblent fondamentaux. Il sera en effet question de valeurs communes, de résilience de l'Union face aux cyberattaques ou aux pandémies, d'engagement citoyen dans les transitions écologiques et numériques, d'Europe globale, ou encore plus concrètement d'hybridation des cours et d'enseignement inclusif. Mon ministère suit avec un grand intérêt cette initiative. Elle a le soutien de France Université, qui lui a décerné le prix de la meilleure initiative franco-européenne, et de l'Université franco-allemande, ainsi que le soutien politique de la Commission européenne. Vous avez été choisi parmi plus de 900 candidats. À travers vous, 38 alliances sur 41 sont présentes dans cette Assemblée. C'est un réel succès. Je tiens à remercier le comité de pilotage pour l'organisation de cet événement, ainsi que France Université, l'UFA et l'agence Erasmus+ pour leur soutien, l'Université de Strasbourg, bien sûr, pour son accueil, et le Parlement européen pour la possibilité de visite qui vous est offerte. Je vous souhaite à tous des échanges riches et fructueux au profit de cette Europe qui est au cœur de notre avenir. Je sais qu'ils se poursuivront dans les prochains mois. La France aura le plaisir d'accueillir un board meeting de l'European Student Union qui représente les organisations étudiantes des pays européens. Je serai particulièrement intéressée par les analyses et les conclusions de vos différents travaux. Soyez certains que vos voix seront écoutées.
To finish, I would like to warmly thank the steering committee of ESA, composed first and foremost of motivated students. I will list them in alphabetical order of their first name. Anne-Sophie, Claire, Chloé, Elena, whom we are missing today as she is in mobility in the US, Eleonore, Émile, Émilie, Julia, Inès, Islam, Lorelai, Louis, Maël, and Niels. I really thank you. The steering committee is also composed of staff from the 3 main universities involved in the organization. So the University of Grenoble, I thank Brigitte Plateau and Kalia Choua, Sciences Po, of course, and I would like to thank Frank Stadelmeyer and particularly Fanny Dubray, who cannot be here today, and we really thank you for her work. And we thank Marina Casanova Rossi, and everybody knows her, I guess, here. I would like also to thank from the University of Strasbourg, Sabine Menu, who has been the link with the university. And as the cherry on the cake, 17 students from the Master of Journalism from the University of Cergy have come here to cover the event, and I want to thank you also. All this would not have been possible without the support of the 38 alliances participation, out of which 4 have been particularly involved: Unite, Civica, Epicure, and Utopia. All this, of course, take place within the framework of the Erasmus Plus program and the Alliances Forum. Music. Now place to music. Music is a part of our common heritage and constitutes a common language. Yes, we were speaking about common language. Music enables us to unite where language fails. Let it help us overcome our differences now and provide us with guidance towards our goal of continued peace and cooperation, especially in these difficult times. So now we are going to call the choir of the University of Strasbourg. The floor is yours. So they are going to play 4 pieces. And we will start, of course, with Ode to the Joy from Ludwig van Beethoven, which is the European Union anthem. Now, they will play Gloria of the Mass in C of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Oh
And now a piece especially for students, Gaudeamus Igitur, which is the International University Anthem. And to finish, in support of the Ukrainian people, the choir is going to sing an Ukrainian song by Dmitry Bortnyansky, Tibie Payam.